My sister-in-law decided to use my house as her wedding venue and didn't even bother inviting me. On her wedding day, she showed up in full bridal mode, only to discover I had changed the locks and there was no wedding happening at my house. I, 34F, have been following this subreddit for a long time. Lately, there has been something going on in my life that I needed an opinion on. I've read a lot of posts about sisters-in-law to see whether anyone else has been through my situation and how they handled it. Well, I guess my situation is unique, and I need some advice about it. It involves my sister-in-law, and that's the reason I can't really discuss this with my husband. You know, family complications. So here's the situation. My 27-year-old sister-in-law is planning a wedding for the spring, and she wants to hold it at my house. Yes, that's right. Not to brag, but I have a 4-bedroom house with a swimming pool and a large backyard. She is engaged to an Irish guy, so his family and relatives will need somewhere to stay when they come for the wedding. We have a fairly spacious living room and a large backyard. She is planning an outdoor wedding in the garden, followed by dinner in the living room. That's how she wants it. Now the obvious question is, am I okay with this? Well, I don't know. That's why I'm here looking for advice. Let me give you some context. I've been married to my husband for 8 years. We met in college and dated for 4 or 5 years before getting married. He doesn't come from a wealthy family, but he is hardworking and self-made. My father-in-law worked as a day laborer, and my mother-in-law did odd jobs. My husband has a younger sister who has been living with my in-laws. Keep in mind that she is 27 years old and still doesn't work. They don't just provide her with food and a roof over her head, they also cater to her extravagant demands, and when I say extravagant, I mean beyond their means. Unlike my husband, who completed his master's degree, my sister-in-law dropped out of college. Her parents didn't even insist that she finish because apparently she didn't need anyone telling her what to do. She is inspired by some new age influencer who says that having a degree doesn't make you rich or successful. I find that strange because I was raised in the complete opposite way. Although my parents are quite wealthy, they never gave us special privileges. Yes, we went to private school, call that a luxury or whatever you want, but beyond that, my parents did nothing for my career. When my brother and I were in high school, Dad told us to earn scholarships or take out student loans because he wasn't going to pay for our college. We used to hate him for it and thought our dad was stingy. We studied hard and earned scholarships. Now that I'm older, I understand the wisdom behind the way he raised us. He made us self-sufficient, and especially after seeing my sister-in-law, I'm convinced of how important a parent's role is in a person's life. When I got my first job right after college, I went crazy spending money on parties and vacations, but Dad sat me down and showed me some good property. I was happy because I thought he was finally going to let some money slip out of his sticky hands, but that wasn't the case. He wanted me to buy the house myself. He paid the down payment. He explained how important it was to own my own home and that the sooner I did it, the better. He advised me to rent out half of it to help cover the mortgage. I own that house today, and I'm glad I do when I look at housing prices now. I think that if I hadn't bought it back then, I would never have been able to get such a spacious property at this price. As for my relationship with my in-laws, it has been more or less okay. We don't see each other that often. They live across town, and I lead a very busy life. I still have a decent relationship with my mother-in-law. We talk once a week, but I simply cannot connect with my sister-in-law. I just can't. We are complete opposites. She doesn't like me because during our early interactions, I kept trying to convince her to finish her education and get a job. She thinks I'm jealous of her because her parents take care of her while mine abandoned me to live on my own. The worst part is that my in-laws say they are going through financial difficulty, yet they continue supporting their 27-year-old daughter. My husband and I offered to help her get an office job, but neither she nor my in-laws showed any interest. She is lazy, there is no doubt about that. But my in-laws should have pushed her to work. Instead, they are happy to provide for her. There are a couple of reasons why my sister-in-law wants to get married at my house. One, of course, is the space. She could have the wedding, lunch, and dinner all in one place, and even her guests could stay there without having to book a hotel. Another reason is that she can't afford to rent a venue, and if she can't use my house, she would have to settle for a wedding at City Hall. She doesn't earn any money, and my in-laws don't have a fortune to spend on her wedding. My husband doesn't want to give an opinion because it is my house, and he wants me to make the decision regardless of what he thinks. That's my man, and that's why I love him so much. So my problem comes down to this. Do you think I should let her use my house as her wedding venue? Update 1. The wedding is the day after tomorrow, and today I found out that I'm not invited. The funny part is that the wedding is being held at my house. Let me start from where I left off last time. Yes, I agreed to let her use my house for the wedding. I was definitely worried about it, but eventually I gave in. Now I regret my decision. I'm furious. So please excuse me if I simply vent everything I'm feeling. My sister-in-law is nothing more than a woman who uses men for money in exchange for, you know what, she isn't even that pretty, and don't get me started on her lack of intelligence. But you know, once the lights go out, most men don't care about all that. She might be good at what she offers, which is how she managed to hit the nail. That's what she calls her fiancé, the nail. She isn't just shallow, she's also a liar. I found out that her Irish fiancé is quite well off financially. He works as a banker, and his family is wealthy too. So, to impress them, she lied and and told them that my house belonged to her family. I had known about this lie for a while, but I didn't care because, at the end of the day, it wasn't affecting me. When her fiancé proposed, she came to me and practically begged me to let her use my house for the wedding. As if that weren't enough, my in-laws came begging too. They said that if I didn't agree, they might have to take out a loan to finance her wedding. I asked them why she and her fiancé couldn't finance it themselves. My in-laws said that traditionally the bride's parents pay for the wedding and that the Irish follow this tradition more closely than we do. I don't know how true that is, so please don't judge me for it. Those weren't my words. On top of that, my sister-in-law had already bragged to her fiancé and future father-in-law about her huge house that could accommodate a wedding. Her stupidity made me laugh. I said, "What if I don't allow the wedding at my house? I mean, I can do that, right? Don't you think she should have asked me first before promising this to her fiancé?" My in-laws nodded and asked me to protect her reputation. I told them I would, but that they should have done a better job raising their daughter. You see, I don't sugarcoat my words, and maybe that's why they think I'm arrogant. They don't understand that I say these things for their own good. You know what happened next? They kept coming to my house until I finally agreed. At some point I thought, it's just 2 days. Let's get this over with. And yes, some people asked in my last post whether she offered to pay rent. No, all of this happened 3 months ago when I made the original post. Fast forward to 2 days ago. My sister-in-law arrived with my in-laws and 2 other men. I was at work and saw them through the indoor security cameras, which have motion sensors. I called her and asked what was going on. She said the men were wedding planners and were there for a site visit so they could plan the wedding accordingly. I asked her to be careful with my things, and she assured me she would. After paying off my mortgage last year, I got rid of the tenants who had been occupying my 2 upstairs bedrooms. I took time off work to prepare 2 rooms for them. I hired a cleaner because it is a huge house and too much for me to clean entirely by myself. Today, my sister-in-law showed up at 6 in the morning while we were still asleep. She was leaving for her bachelorette party in the next town and had come by to see whether everything had been prepared properly. She was pleased to see that I had prepared 2 rooms for them and rented a larger dining table for tonight's dinner. Then she walked through the house saying, "Okay, those 2 rooms are ready for my in-laws. Mom and Dad will take your bedroom, and I'll take the room with the walk-in closet." Wow, I'm so excited to show them my huge house with all this fancy stuff. I can't wait to see their amazed expressions when I show them the house. I was confused. I mean, where exactly were we supposed to fit into all of this? The rest of the conversation went like this. "Sorry, I'm confused. If your parents are taking our bedroom, where are we going?" She replied, "Well, I don't know. You can go to your parents' house, or maybe check into a hotel for 2 days. You both earn good money, so I'm sure you can afford it." I answered, "But why do we have to move out of our own house?" In a mocking tone, she said, "Because to them, this is my parents' house, remember? And you two can't live here. It would be really weird for a married brother and his wife to live with my parents." I felt dizzy after hearing. Like, what the hell? So you're going to pretend this is your parents' house and that you live here like some princess? I was already pretty angry, so I put on a serious face and asked, "Then according to your fairy tale, where do we live in case your in-laws ask about us?" "Oh, they won't. I mean, how could they? You two won't be here, right? And what about our thing, our photographs? Who would know they're yours? I'll tell them everything belongs to me. The only problem is the pictures in your hallway. We'll have to take them down before they arrive." I sighed and asked, "So even if we vacate the house to keep up your little facade, we would still see them at your wedding, right? What if they ask us then?" I asked sarcastically, but her answer left me stunned. No. There's a misunderstanding. You two aren't attending the wedding or the family dinner at all." I was like, "What the hell?" She continued, "I'm not sure how this happened, but I never invited you to the wedding. My parents sent you an invitation." I felt incredibly stupid for even talking to her. I screamed my husband's name while he was sleeping peacefully. I yelled so loudly that he came running out. I shouted, "Did you know we weren't invited to the wedding?" It looked like his body was awake, but his mind was still asleep. "Whose wedding?" "Oh yeah, her wedding. We're not invited? I mean, why?" I said, "Your sister said she never sent us an invitation, so how could we assume we were invited?" He said, "Let me understand the situation. I really don't understand what's happening here." It took him a few minutes and several repetitions to understand what had just happened. He was horrified that we hadn't been invited to a wedding that was going to take place in our own house. My sister-in-law said, "Well, if it bothers you that much, you can attend, and you can probably say your wife is sick and has to skip it." I asked her what her original excuse had been for explaining our absence. The woman had the audacity to laugh in my face and said, "Oh, you won't believe it. I told them my parents had cut you two off because you're too toxic." I was like, wow, what else could I expect from you? I stormed into my bed without another word. It was pointless wasting time talking to her. My husband followed me and assured me that it was still my decision if I wanted to withdraw my consent. At that moment, I was too angry to think clearly. I needed to calm down so I could make a rational decision. That's why I sat down to post this update, thinking it might help, and it did. I feel much much lighter. But that doesn't mean I'm going to give in to the princess's demands. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I am definitely not leaving my house to participate in her fairy tale of lies. Whatever happens, I'll update this thread. You can count on me. Update 2. Hi guys, thanks for participating in my posts. Yes, all of you were right when you said that the spoiled princess lives in a fantasy world. First of all, let me answer some common questions from the comments. How can my sister-in-law access my house when I'm not there? After I agreed to let her use it for the wedding, I gave her the spare key. The front porch, living room, garden, and pool area are all covered by cameras, so I felt comfortable giving her the spare key. Second, how is it possible that my sister-in-law's fiancé believed her lies about the house being hers? Had he never visited her at her actual home? I'm not sure. She has been dating him for less than a year. 2 weeks before the wedding, she brought him to my house and gave him a tour while I was at work. After writing that update earlier that day, I discussed my thoughts with my husband. Although he was on my side and kept saying it was my decision, he was worried that if I backed out, his sister's wedding would be canceled and his parents' reputation would be ruined. I said, then let's talk to your parents. We went to their home and told them about my sister-in-law's plan to exclude us from the wedding. Apparently, they already knew, and it seemed like they were okay with it. My husband lost his composure and said, you knew she was excluding us from her wedding, and you were okay with it? My mother-in-law replied weakly, we thought you two were okay with it too. Neither of you ever asked us why she hadn't sent you an invitation. At that point, I actually questioned whether we had been wrong to assume that we were invited simply because the wedding was taking place at my house. My husband and I stared at each other in shock. My husband yelled at them, do you realize there won't be a wedding if she withdraws her permission? What if we tell her future in-laws the truth? My mother-in-law panicked and begged us not to do such a thing. My father-in-law stepped in and politely asked me whether I would be willing to attend the wedding if my sister-in-law sent us an invitation now. I remained silent and didn't answer because I was furious. My father-in-law told my mother-in-law to call my sister-in-law, tell her to send us an invitation immediately, and make her apologize to us. My mother-in-law hesitated to call, but my father-in-law stared at her with red eyes. My mother-in-law made the call with trembling hands, and my father-in-law told her to put the phone on speaker. My sister-in-law answered and scolded my mother-in-law for bothering her during her spa session. My mother-in-law told her it was urgent and that my father-in-law wanted her to invite my husband and me to the wedding. She got angry and said, there is no way I'm inviting that witch. She thinks she's so smart. My mother-in-law tried to stop her in the middle of the conversation and whispered, they're here with us. But the princess was too busy complaining. She said, if she meets my in-laws, she's going to outshine me. I want to look the prettiest on my wedding day. Besides, you know how she's always talking about different things, jobs, careers, investments, and all that stuff, blah, 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 to get everyone's attention. I don't want that at my wedding. Everyone's attention should be on me. If she's around, she'll make me look stupid. So no, she is not allowed at my wedding. Then she hung up. I shouted back, I make you sound stupid because you are stupid, and stormed out of the house. When my husband got up to leave, my in-laws asked him to calm me down and said they would speak to my sister-in-law and make her apologize. Apologize my ass. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law texted me saying I needed to take our portraits down from the hallway and move out of the house after supervising the preparations the next day. She said, my fiancé will arrive at the house with his family at 10 a.m. So get out before then, but make sure you leave my parents there before the wedding planners are left alone. I'll stay at my friend's house after the bachelorette party. I'll go straight to the salon from there and arrive at the venue like a bride. Of course, Your Highness, I'm going to arrange the perfect wedding for you. By the time we got home, it was late in the afternoon. I called a locksmith and changed the locks on the house. Later that night, my husband called my father-in-law and told him that we would not allow the wedding to take place in our house, so they had better find another venue. He tried calling my sister-in-law, but she was busy getting drunk at her bachelorette party. My father-in-law called back in a panic, asking what he was supposed to do. My husband suggested that if he wanted to save his reputation, he should call the guests and cancel the invitation using whatever reasonable excuse he could come up with, because there was absolutely no way the wedding was happening on the scheduled date at the scheduled location. The night was exciting just imagining the expression on my sister-in-law's face when the truth came out. At around 6 in the morning on the day the wedding festivities were supposed to begin with dinner, my doorbell rang. It was the wedding planner. I was there to begin setting everything up. I told him this was my house and that there would be no wedding there. He looked confused and said my sister-in-law and her fiancé had booked the place for that day. I told him to call them because my house was no longer available. An hour later, my sister-in-law's fiancé came knocking on my door. I answered, and he asked whether my sister-in-law was home because she wasn't answering her phone. I told him no, she wasn't there because this wasn't her house. He said, maybe there's some confusion. I'm her fiancé and we're having our wedding at this house today. I assume you're her sister-in-law. I saw your pictures in the hallway the other day. I smiled and said, you're right, I'm her sister-in-law, but there's more I need to tell you. Let's start with the most basic thing. This is my house and I live here. My sister-in-law and my in-laws live across town in an apartment. By the way, congratulations on your wedding, but it's no longer happening here because I changed my mind. I don't know what happened immediately after that. At around 9 in the morning, this princess showed up, pounding on my door. I didn't answer. She called my husband and demanded to know what was going on and why I had thrown the wedding planner out. He told her that our house was no longer available and that she should find another venue for the wedding. She screamed and hammered on my door, demanding that we let her in. I opened the window and shouted, "If you bang on my door again, you could end up in jail on your wedding day, if there even is a wedding." She insulted us and called us names for ruining her life. She finally left after the neighbors threatened to call the police. I blocked her number, but she bombarded my husband's phone with obscene voice messages, calling him names for not defending his sister. I asked him whether he was upset. He said he was upset, but that she had brought this on herself. She couldn't assume everything would simply be handed to her on a silver platter. She had been ungrateful and had taken us for granted. She told her fiancé that this was her house and planned a wedding here without even asking for permission. On top of that, she excluded us from the wedding and called me a witch. What did she expect to get in return? My in-laws haven't taken it well. They blame me for damaging their reputation. That makes me question their entire value system because they were clearly okay with their daughter excluding us from a wedding that was being held on my property. As for the wedding, it was canceled that day. My sister-in-law and my in-laws went to see her fiancé and his family to ask them to wait a week so they could arrange another venue. I heard that her fiancé called them liars in front of everyone and said he was canceling the wedding and would have to reconsider the relationship. God knows what will happen now. I'm glad I'm out of this drama. I have a life to live and a career to excel in. God bless her and her lies. Update 3. Well, a couple of days have passed since the date that was supposed to be my sister-in-law's wedding at my house, and as you already know, it didn't happen here. It didn't happen anywhere else either because, at the end of the day, the groom decided to cancel the whole thing after seeing the lies his ex-fiancée had told. I don't blame him. We're talking about someone who can take lies this far, so we could expect even more lies in the future, if there aren't more already. Anyway, what matters is everyone's reaction after all the plans fell apart. Starting with my sister-in-law, she has been crying ever since all of this happened. Obviously, she blames me for everything, which is ridiculous because I wasn't the one who lied to half the world. Her ex came by the house the other day and told me this while apologizing for everything. I told him he had nothing to worry about because none of this was his fault. I even apologized to him because I should have told him about everything earlier, although to be fair, it wasn't as though we had any kind of relationship or had much contact before. I didn't even have his phone number or know his name well enough to look him up on social media, but I felt bad for him, so I apologized. As for my in-laws, they keep calling my husband to badmouth me and him as well, telling him that he should have done something instead of simply allowing himself to be controlled by me. He is thinking about blocking them if this continues, and he has stopped answering their calls because he is sick of them. But that is between him and his parents, so I'm not going to get involved. Update 4. A week has passed since my last update, and I hoped the previous one would be the last because I don't have any more time to waste on their nonsense. I had already done far too much for her, but she had to show up at my house and cause a scene. It was Saturday morning, and I was at home eating breakfast when she started pounding on the door. I knew it was her because the pounding was accompanied by hysterical screaming. She sounded possessed from the way she was shrieking, like something out of a horror movie. According to what she was shouting, she wanted to hit me because I had ruined her wedding and her relationship by being selfish and a witch. My husband wasn't home because he had gone to play tennis with his friend. She was screaming at the top of her lungs and pounding on the door while I drank my coffee. A neighbor heard everything and called the police. He also came over to my door to make sure I was okay and told my sister-in-law that the police were on their way. She finally left, but the funny thing was that she ran away like a thief or something because she doesn't have a car and had arrived here in an Uber, so she didn't have enough time to order another one before the police arrived. Afterward, I opened the door and spoke to my neighbor. When I finished talking to him, the police arrived and I explained what had happened, including how she had threatened to hit me. My neighbor was a witness, and there were also the security cameras. The police went to my in-laws' house to look for her. It's late now, and my in-laws called my husband to tell him what I had done and yell some more, but my husband ended the call and blocked them. I know many of you will be disappointed because we don't know what happened to my sister-in-law, since my in-laws were the only people who could have told us, but both of us feel like we've had enough of everyone. Whether she ends up in jail or not, we don't know, but at least we're done with that family.